Welcome to the CEO Insider Podcast, powered by YTexas and brought to you by Ryan, liberating their clients from the burden of being overtaxed, freeing their capital so they can invest, grow, and thrive. My name is Sandy McIlree, along with Ed Curtis. And Ed, you have kind of become the guy, the go-to guy for the reasons why so many businesses are relocating to Texas. And we read about them every day. And I like the approach that you're taking, and that you'll be giving a presentation to some organizations in the North Dallas area. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But I like that you've boiled it down. You've simplified it a little bit into 3 different categories that kind of funnel into one decision, and that's relocating to Texas. I like it.
Well, I figured since we're starting off the new year with the podcast, we're looking for topics. Yeah, that's a big topic that you'll read about in the local business journals. You'll see it on TV. I mean, people are reaching out to us for this as well. Obviously, the name of our organization is YTexas, but you can. There are a ton of stats out there. There are a lot of reasons why companies and people are moving here. But yeah, I thought let's boil it down to some really, really simple things. And as Texans, I think we take some of them for granted. But when I talk to people that are moving here from out of state, even out of the country, it's new to them. Mm-hmm. I think in a big picture way, that's a big reason why companies are moving and staying here. You know, the first pillar I thought we'd talk about is, as you and I were chatting about this before the conversation, the fear of missing out. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, everybody wants to be a part of the in thing, and right now, Texas is the in thing.
It is. It really is. It's kind of like when you go to Las Vegas and you're at a casino and one of the crap tables, everyone's cheering and having a great time. You naturally gravitate to that. That's where I can go. I can have a good time. I can make some money. I don't want to miss out on that, right? Texas is a hot craps table. Yeah.
Texas is the hot craps table. And in a couple of interviews that I've had recently, they've asked, is it the pandemic? Is it what is it? And I said, well, I mean, first of all, it's been happening for a long time. We've been tracking relocations for the last 8 years. And actually last year was one of the better years over the last 8 years, but not that much better. Mm-hmm. 21, I believe, is going to be the best year over the next, if you compare the last 10 years, I think 2021 is going to be the biggest one. But the pandemic, yes, it did accelerate people's interest in moving here. But again, I mean, think about it. If you've always been looking at Texas and you've always been intrigued about why things are going so well here, why are people so nice, why are companies moving there, and then you throw the pandemic in, it's just that one last thing that says, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Mm-hmm. And I think top that on to the fact that you've got the Oracles of the world and the HPs moving here, and you've got Elon Musk. It's just that fear of missing out. That, hey, I want to be close to where the action is. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to benefit me, but nothing's going on here and a lot is going on there.
Yeah,
so,
it's
again simple.
It's almost like the analogy, a good analogy would be when you see a McDonald's or a Walmart go up somewhere, you know that area has been researched well. It's going to be it's up and coming. And so when you get the big names, the big companies, the Teslas, the Oracles and stuff moving here, it's almost like they've done the research for you.
You're exactly right. Where, follow the smart money, follow the smart people. Mm-hmm. And when one smart person is coming out and after the next, I think people are like, I need to get ahead of this. So yeah, good for us. And simple. If you've got a small business or you moved here recently, believe it or not, that applies to the big companies and the individuals, and it's simple. It's
amazing how many people you meet that move here, whether it's, for whatever reason, when they first get here and people are helpful and want to help you out, they're a little, especially if they're from the East Coast, they're like, wait a minute, what does this guy want? And then after 2 or 3 times of not wanting anything, they're like, oh, that's just kind of the way things are around here. I've talked to a lot of people in startups that have noticed that the willingness to help you succeed. That's one of the things that we take for granted.
Well, and it's funny too, because I think to some extent it's annoying to people that want to get to the point quickly. Mm-hmm. Right? And I remember that when I moved here, I love the fact that people are nice, but sometimes when you're from that fast-paced environment and you expect, I just want a yes or no really quickly, It's frustrating. It's just difficult to get used to. And I'm finding it. I'm having a lot of conversations from people from the East Coast, and they're just like, "Yeah, but I don't get it. Like, what's the what did you call it on the last podcast? What's the hustle?"
Yeah, what's the hustle?
What's the hustle?
There is
like, no, really, man. There's no hustle. We're just trying to figure things out.
Yeah, and I mentioned startups a little bit ago, and we're seeing more and more capital starting to. I know that's not the topic of this podcast, but Texas has always kind of had the rap of not really being a great. A place with capital to get started. But we're seeing big changes in that in the state of Texas. The more companies move here, the more capital is freeing up for startups too.
It is. I've had an interesting conversation with a gentleman who's working on big infrastructure projects, and he says that, yes, venture capital is coming to Texas, and we're getting more of it, but it's not going into big infrastructure projects. And it was interesting. He talked about the history of Silicon Valley and how it got formed, and it basically was formed on the premise of venture capitalists, people coming in, taking big risk and moving products forward like Apple and Intel. And he sees that being a big issue, not issue in the state of Texas, but we've got big issues to tackle: transportation, infrastructure, energy,
water.
These are big things that need large dollar investments. The government's not going to dole out the money, particularly as things are, slowing down from the state and federal level. And it's that private sector, it's that big money, the big ideas that are all moving to Texas that, again, this was the premise of how Silicon Valley got built. And he sees that that's the big opportunity in Texas, is getting some of the big money coming into the state, investing in the future. So it's interesting. Kind of like
we haven't discussed it in a while, but the bullet train.
Exactly.
Big project, big infrastructure, big money. Boy, that's swinging for the fences.
Well, yeah. And there's private money into this. There is some federal money. I think there's more federal money coming than they had originally planned because, the investment's going to be a little more risky as you go forward. But exactly right. That's a great example. And like you had said, water and other infrastructure projects, they need big ideas and big money.
Yeah. So we've kind of got the community aspect that can kind of be wrapped up with fear of missing out. And part of the missing out plays right into the commerce piece of this. The money.
Yeah. I mean, people want to make money. And again, when they look at what's happening and they see the companies and people moving here, like you had said, the smart money, the smart people, they want to be closer to it. I've talked to companies that don't have contracts with these big organizations that are moving here. Maybe they provide a product or a service that maybe they could use. Maybe they manufacture a product that they could potentially sell to these companies, but they're moving here to get closer to the opportunity to make money.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense.
Simple.
It's plain and simple. It comes down to money,
Comes down to money.
And, we're a very business-friendly state. No state income tax. That's attractive to a lot of people. The ability to go to the East and the West Coast in about the same amount of time out of Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, all those things are really attractive to companies when considering their relocation. It just is, right? That just makes your quality of life better.
Well, look, getting product to the customer quickly and efficiently. I don't care what business you're in. That's the game right now.
Yeah.
So whether it's e-commerce or whether it's manufacturing, you need to get the product to where it needs to go as quick as possible. You need to get the raw materials. You need to make the product as close to the facility as possible. And that is another big reason why companies are coming here to be centrally located. Yes, the airports getting to the East and West Coast within a few hours is great. But, the Port of Houston and the Port of Corpus Christi, getting products in and out of this state. Look, 30% of all refining, 50% of all chemical production, which is essentially, a gas, and 38 to 40% of all the natural gas for utilities is.
We got plenty of energy. There's plenty of energy. Yeah, I mean,
we have plenty of energy. But we have all forms of energy.
Right.
We're leading the country in wind energy. So again, energy is fueling, pardon the pun, but it's fueling all of these things that these companies are doing. So it's a big factor, and it's cheaper.
And I also think that, you mentioned the importance of getting stuff to your customers. This is all a byproduct of Amazon.
Yeah.
All of it. Because how many times have you been on Amazon and you want to buy something, and you're like, 2 days? I need it tomorrow. Right.
Tomorrow.
So it all kind of feeds the rest of everything else. We now have a thought process that is, everything should be here in a day or two. You're not going to wait 6 weeks for something. Come on. Right.
Yeah.
It's even when you mentioned raw materials, that's how people think now because of Amazon.
That's why I think that, and this was a conversation long before COVID, reshoring, made in America, made in Texas. That's, even pre-COVID, before all of the issues with the virus, that was still important, because the closer that your products are made and manufactured to where the customer is, the better. Which is kind of the other end of the spectrum. Is now we're approaching 30 million people that are moving here, and when you talk to a retail customer, someone that could B2C customer company, a lot of them say, "Look, 30 million people in the state of Texas that are all there to buy my product that I could get to in one day." I want to be there.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Made in America. The Biden administration, I read recently, is going to have quite a big push for Buy American, bigger than we've seen in the last few years, put it that way. So something to look forward to see how well that campaign goes. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. If we could make it and you can buy it, let's do it. Right?
Yeah.
So we've covered
for that.
Community, commerce, and now really a kind of a factor that you can't put a price tag on, and that's culture. Right?
Nice, friendly people.
Yeah.
That you enjoy being around. Sunny weather, things like that are, believe it or not, big factors.
Yeah, I mean, nothing would be more true than when you see an entire city of Austin freak out and have a snowstorm. People up in the Northeast are like, "What? That's every other day for us." Those people are excited for snow. That's how rarely they get snow. We had a beautiful snowfall in Austin a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago, and it was fun. Right? It was fun. Yeah. But that's just thing. Are
you kidding?
Yeah, growing up.
Most of my neighbors are not from here. They're from. I've got one from Kansas City, Seattle. So I mean, the people from Kansas City were used to it. Funny story is the kids were outside sleigh riding, and the kids across the street had sleds. I'm like, where's the sleds from? They said, we just moved here from Kansas City.
Yeah,
we're all ready to throw them out.
We were using the tops of trash cans and pulling people around behind a Jeep in the streets.
Cardboard.
But it's a fun place to live. And it's hard, like I said, it's hard to quantify your quality of life, but it all leads into that. If you're making money and business is good, your quality of life is good, your culture is good. It's a great place and a great way to live. Yeah.
And if you really think about, the cost of living plays into quality of life, right? I mean,
sure.
Let's face it, if it's expensive and you can't save any money and you're trying to make ends meet, which I'm not saying people in Texas are breezing by, but that of course adds to the quality of life, which is really adds to the culture and the quality of life. I mean, look, we just approached $2 a gallon here in Texas,
right,
for gas. Well, in California, it's well over $3 a gallon in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, in gas prices. I know that the median sales price for a home, and this is a general number because the state is really big, is approaching $240,000 for a house. In California, it's well over $500,000 for a house. So
right.
You're looking at 2 times as much, a bigger house, and nicer people. But again, a lot of this plays into recruiting talent and recruiting people to come to your company. I talk to a lot of companies that say, we moved here for the talent, but we also moved here because we know that if we need to recruit the talent here, they'll come.
Mm-hmm.
Because they know that it's nice and they know that it's less expensive and they know the weather is good. So a lot of this plays into, even if you're manufacturing products that need good weather, coming into the state knowing that the weather is pretty predictable. I mean, you're going to have your hurricanes and your tornadoes, and a lot of this plays into, even if you're manufacturing products that need good weather, coming into the state knowing that the weather is pretty predictable. I mean, you're going to have your hurricanes and your tornadoes, and a lot of this plays into, even if you're manufacturing products that need good weather, coming into the state knowing that the weather is pretty predictable. I mean, you're going to have your hurricanes and your tornadoes, and and your rain and your dry weather, but it's predictable. And,
True.
All these factors, again, play into any size business. The quality of life, the friendliness of the culture, I think, is a big factor that is kind of underplayed sometimes.
And we've got a good thing going in Texas. We really do. And let me ask you this. Does it at all concern you that, let's take California, for example, there's a lot of companies leaving California because of the tax burden that's there. You mentioned the cost of a home and that type of thing. Does it concern you at all that the people here would elect the same kind of decision makers that have made the decisions in states like California that have caused a lot of problems?
I mean, yes, it does. I think the more people understand how things work in Texas, I'm a firm believer that one of the main reasons why Texas's economy is so good is our low regulatory environment.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly where I'm going with that.
And a lot of people say taxes, and taxes are a big part of it. That's something that everybody can relate to. But the regulations are a big factor in when you build a home or you build a commercial facility or you're building a rocket launching test site like we know for the guys from Firefly. If the regulations are overbearing, it's going to be too expensive for you to build, and it's going to be too difficult for you to innovate, and you're not going to go that extra mile.
Yeah.
I guess what I mean by this is this is not necessarily something that people are voting on in the voting booth. These are things that are kind of ingrained in our society. And I mean, who the heck wants more regulations? I mean, of course we want clean air and a good environment. And let me tell you, Texas leads in all of that, believe it or not. So I think that a lot of the things that are ingrained in our economy are not necessarily things that people are voting on or voting against. And I think when you get used to having a lower cost of living and being around nicer people, believe me, you don't want to change it.
Right. You don't. You definitely don't. And I hope you're right. Leads us to a couple of speaking engagements that you have coming up. I know you're excited about. You're spreading the word about great things happening in Texas. You're going to be at the North Texas Relocation Professionals. You're speaking to them, correct?
Yep. Speaking to them this week. Excited about that. I mean, obviously, most of these people are in the relocation business, whether it's real estate or moving companies or business consultants or site selection consultants. So, yeah, going to be talking about similar things we're talking about today, about the benefits of moving to Texas and what companies should look out for.
And also Success North Dallas.
Yeah, a guy named Bill Wallace in Dallas, good friend of mine for a long time. He's got an amazing networking organization. They have hundreds of people that go to their events in person. This year it'll be virtual, but I'll be sitting down with him as well.
Right. You're a busy man. You've got, look at you're a podcaster, you're streaming video now. You've written a book before. Let's mention the book as well.
YTexas, How Business Discovered the Lone Star State. I'm going to be doing some virtual book tours this year. If you remember, I wrote the book last year. COVID hit. We kind of slowed things down. Sure. Put the book on the back burner, but the topic is front and center. So we're going to be talking about that again. And I'll be reaching out to some of the people that we wrote about how they've been handling the post-COVID crisis as well. So all good. And then we will have our YTexas event on the 28th of next week, and that's virtual. And that's open to anyone who wants to come. And it's going to be a good event.
That's past. It's called Past, Present, and the Future of Corporate Relocation in Texas. Definitely a hot topic. You got yourself a hot topic is what you got, Ed.
It is.
Which is good.
Timing's everything, right?
It is. Timing's everything. Speaking of timing, good time visiting with you. And let's do it again soon, all right?
You got it, Sandy.